Escaping the death and destruction in their own country, hundreds of ethnic Rohingya Muslims are living in abysmal conditions in Jammu and Kashmir. Said Ali Safwi has traveled all the way to Jammu to meet some of those families.
Driven to desperation in their homeland and fearing for their lives, hundreds of Rohingya families who fled Burma after the outbreak of communal violence continue to live in wretched condition in Jammu region, the winter capital of Indian-controlled Kashmir. While they manage to escape the horrors of death in their country, their tale of misery and helplessness continues as refugees. According to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, more than 11,000 Rohingya Muslims, considered one of the world's most persecuted minorities by United Nations, are living as refugees in Indian states of Delhi, Hyderabad, Mizoram and Jammu. Jammu witnessed the highest influx of these refugees, estimated to be around 900 families. However, their miseries have not ended as yet. They continue to face worse kind of hardships and apathy as refugees, living in abject poverty in slums, which lack all the basic amenities like drinking water and sanitation. These families fled their country, Burma, after the outbreak of communal violence that claimed hundreds of lives. Some families have been living here for the last 5 years, while some have come as recently as few weeks back. Our team went to Narwal area of Jammu district, where most of these families are putting up in makeshift huts. Walking through the maze of slums gives a fair idea of the sordid tale of these refugees. Recent years have seen an escalation of attacks on Muslims in Myanmar. The violence has reportedly left hundreds of Rohingya Muslims dead, and nearly 1 million have been rendered homeless. Women and children have been the worst sufferers in communal rights and persecution of minority Muslims. If that was not enough, the government there has displayed absolute apathy to the crimes committed by Buddhist fanatics, amounting to either complicity or cowardice. Fearing persecution and torture, Nurul Islam came to Jammu 6 months ago with his wife and 3-year-old daughter. Recounting the horrific tales of genocide and oppression, he says,
Since childhood, I have been seeing how Muslims are being brutalized by the government and Buddhist extremists. As I grew up, I realized there was no hope for a better future. Things turned ugly last year when they started butchering Muslims with sheer disdain. There are draconian restrictions on Muslims in that country. We have to seek permission from the authorities for even going from one village to another, and we have to shell out money to get the permission. If we want to make a sacrifice on Eid, we cannot do that unless we get the permission, which is only given when we pay a huge sum of money, sometimes much more than the cost of the sacrificial animal.
He says properties of Muslims have been confiscated by the authorities and many houses have been ransacked and torched by Buddhist hooligans.
The property of our forefathers has been confiscated and the world is watching mutely. We were left with no option but to migrate from our country. The extent of oppression and tyranny is such that if our hen gives eggs and somehow 1 or 2 eggs break, the authorities would grill us and say that you have eaten the egg without permission. If we have to seek permission for even eating the egg that our hen has laid in our backyard, how can we live in that country?
Muhammad Yaqub lost his parents and other family members to violence. They were hacked to death by Burmese army and the Buddhist mobs.
It seems we were born to see this gory whirlpool of bloodshed. My parents and siblings were all mowed down by ethnic Rakhine Buddhists. They are torturing and persecuting Muslims and destroying our properties. Buddhists don't want Muslims to live in Myanmar. That's why they have started this military campaign against us. Worse, the government forces are hand in glove with them.
Most of these refugees in Jammu work as manual laborers or factory workers to sustain their families. They have been given asylum seeker card by United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, but still they have been deprived of all the basic facilities that refugees are entitled to. Hundreds of these Rohingya Muslims who came to Jammu region of Indian-controlled Kashmir now have to deal with official apathy and indifference as refugees. Experts fear their abysmal living conditions might result in disease and epidemic if authorities don't wake up now. Observers describe the situation of displaced Rohingya families in Jammu as worst. They say the rate of malnutrition among these refugees is alarming and have warned of an impending catastrophe.
They live in deplorable condition. The government is not providing them any facility. There is no sanitation facility, portable drinking water, electricity. If the authorities continue to cold shelter them, I am afraid they might die of starvation of some epidemic. If there is an outbreak of disease, it will spread to entire Jammu region. Government must come forward and provide them with all the basic amenities so that they will live in a disease-free life.
Urging the international organizations like the United Nations and OIC to come forward and stop the murderous persecution of Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, Ashik criticized the state government for its indifference towards these displaced Rohingya families.
I have been to their camp several times. They are charged in exorbitant land rents by private landowners. There are thousands of acres of government land lying vacant in Jammu. I wonder why the state government is reluctant to rehabilitate these refugees there, at least on humanitarian grounds. Government should establish temporarily hutments for them. It should also set up temporarily schools like in case of nomadic communities, so that their future does not suffer.
To understand the role of government, we spoke to Kashmir's lawmaker from the ruling party.
The state of Jammu and Kashmir has a rich tradition of hosting refugees from different countries in the times of turmoil of their respective countries. We have refugees from West Pakistan who are residing in Kashmir and mostly in the province of Jammu for a period of 6 decades now. And the state of Jammu and Kashmir has always tried to facilitate their peaceful and honorable stay, with every basic amenities provided to their households. Same is the case with the Burma refugees, those who have taken refuge in the state of Jammu and Kashmir.
Asked about the miserable plight of these refugees living in deplorable condition in Jammu, Rohullah said,
"This whole process was never planned, never designed. The amenities might be lacking. The state of Jammu and Kashmir would be understanding day by day what the requirements and the needs of those people who are taking refuge in those places are."
Saeed Ali Safvi for Reporters File, Indian controlled Kashmir.